Hey there, I'm William Green. These are my green pets, and you are looking at the flower of a bulbophyllum. This is Capilipes or Capilips species, and I'm plant sitting this little guy for a friend of mine. I've got a few of his plants while he's out of town, and so I get to kind of experience somebody else's collection for a temporary amount of time. This is a really cool little bulbo. Actually, it pushes out flowers from the rhizome, and they pop up pretty quickly, and then they expand and pop open, and they've got really nice little flappy lips, like a lot of the bulbophyllums do. This is another species that he's got. It can grow into really big clusters. And then he's got a dendrobium there as well, that it looked like it had a couple buds at the tips. And then at the very bottom of the pot you can see the Venus flytrap. So it's kind of cool. Now this flower you actually saw in bud on the cover of last week's video. This is Wilmar Galaxy Star, a bulbophyllum hybrid. And another grower and I were just sitting there admiring this flower and commenting on how it looks like a spaceship. Like this thing is going to come down from outer space and abduct the humans. It's got a really nice floppy lip like many of these bulbophyllums have. And it's got a very interesting fragrance. It was very similar to the rufinum fragrance, my bulbophyllum rufinum. Kind of a fruity, maybe a slightly overly ripe fruit smell. But yeah, look how sleek and fast this thing looks. It's just going to go pshoo, right into the hyperspace. Alright, well, finally getting on to my green pets. These are my catasetums, which are currently not being watered. They haven't received any water since January. And they're coming out of dormancy. These are plants from Central America that experience an extended dry season. And recently, the advice is to not water these plants while the roots are developing. And you can see they are pushing out quite vigorously now. And as they push out, they kind of, search for little nooks and crevices. They're kind of searching for water. And the advice is to not do it, not to water them. Just to let them search for the water for a while. And then when the roots are quite long, you can start watering. So my target date to start watering is going to be the end of May. The only problem that I'm having with the catasetums right now is just a little worried about the temperature. I'm keeping them under a plastic tent in the greenhouse because I don't have control over the water in the greenhouse. So I'm just trying to use this plastic tent to keep the water off of them. And what happens is that you get a double greenhouse effect inside the plastic tent. And I'm just worried that it might get a little too hot in there. Of course, these plants can take some pretty hot temperatures, so I'm hoping that that won't be too much of a problem. The good thing is that they're still cooling down quite a bit at night, and that's really good for them to kind of reset. So maybe it won't be that big of a deal. But yeah, you can see lots of great roots pushing out of each one of these growths, and we're just gonna let them keep doing their thing. This is Wine Delight, Cycnotus Wine Delight. And yeah, I think it's the furthest along of all of them. It loses its leaves relatively late and grows new ones relatively soon. So it must not need much of a dormant season. But it does grow up to have some really lovely flowers. So when I examine the bulbs here, they're not even really starting to get too wrinkled at all. I mean, most of them are quite plump still, which is good. I mean, considering they haven't been watered in January, February, March, April, 4 months, I think they're doing okay. But yeah, I'm really excited to see the flowers on these. I got these 3 of these 4 I got in October of last year, and I have not seen them bloom. And I've never had a pure catasetum hybrid, so the little differences is going to be interesting. Another plant coming out of dormancy is this Molasses Latifolia, and it's got a really interesting new growth, kind of, telescoping its way out. It's got roots growing out of the bottom of that growth, and last year the little bulb that I received, it bloomed. So I'm actually looking forward to this one blooming as well. This is quite a bit bigger than last year, and so that's going to be exciting. Now last year this plant had what looked like another growth coming off of the bulb, and it didn't end up growing any leaves, but it ended up being this little thing, this little teardrop shaped bulb. And I've just kind of kept it dry all winter, and wouldn't you know it, the little thing is starting to grow. You can see at the very bottom there's a little green nubbin, and that's just kind of a miniature version of the bigger bulb that I have potted up. So it's going to be interesting to see that thing grow from just that tiny little bulb. Sorry, we're now moving on to the paths that I've got doing something right now. This is Paphiopedilum Tantum, and hopefully that'll be blooming in the next couple months. This is Paphiopedilum. The bud is still pretty early stages, so we're definitely at least 3 months away from this one flowering. Next up is my little wind orchid. This is Vanda Falcata from Japan and East Asia, and it's just got the most beautiful, brilliant, hot pink roots popping out of it everywhere. It's really undergoing a growth spurt at the moment, and I'm a little concerned about the speckling on the leaves here, but I have been told that it's just a matter of sunlight and just getting a lot of light. It just kind of freaks me out because whenever I see speckles, I tend to think virus. All right, well, let's look over at Hal. This is the Bulbophyllum echinolabium. And I've filmed this just a few days ago, so he's actually in bloom now, but I don't have video of it on here. If you check out my Instagram account, My Green Pets on Instagram, you'll see a selfie that I took with me and Hal fully opened today. Now, I actually got Hal off of eBay, and it had 3 growths on it when I first got it, and it took 3 years of good growing before it bloomed. And I remember being really frustrated. If you go back and look at my videos from like 3 or 4 years ago, you'd be like, you can see this huge plant, but it just wouldn't bloom. So, but it finally has started putting out spikes, and it's been a great bloomer. There's a lot of bulbophyllums in bloom and in bud right now in the greenhouse, and I've got a couple myself. This is Bulbo Lovely Elizabeth. It's got a little white nubbin pushing up, and I'm really hoping that it is a spike. One rather pleasant surprise has been that Bulbophyllum winlandianum. It's been putting out some new growth, and this spike just suddenly emerged out of the new growth, which makes me think that it's possible that the other growths will also have spikes pushing out of them soon. But it's like one of the Elizabeth Ann Buckleberry type bulbophyllums, so I'm looking forward to those long flowers with those kind of frilly petals, and it'd be interesting to see if it has a good or bad fragrance. Just a look at these little mounted Cattleya seedlings, and just spotting one of my favorite things to see on these is the new roots, and it's just great to see how they push along following the contours of the bark, and they kind of go in and under and around the little obstacles in their search for water. Just really great to see these guys. This particular plant is just now completing a really large leaf, and I pulled down the sheath underneath it, and it's actually working on another new growth right away. So super happy with the way that these guys are growing. This is another one that's got a really nice big growth that's popping out there. We're seeing so much great growth here in the greenhouse. They've gotten good sun all winter long, and you can really see that it's picking them up and pushing them along. Now this is going to be the one that shows us something interesting this year. You can see this kind of whitish sheath that the plant produced last year on last year's growth. Well, this year it's pushing out a new growth, and if this plant is going to bloom, it'll be right here on this growth. So we've got a good 3 to 4 month wait. It takes a while for Cattleya leaves to develop, but at some point in the next few months we're going to know if we're going to get our first Cattleya rex flower out of this bunch. Well, that's just about it for My Green Pets this week. I hope you enjoyed checking on everything and seeing the new growths and the little nubbins and the roots and buds and blooms that I had to show you this week. Things are going to get exciting as the summer progresses, especially looking forward to those Cattleya seedlings potentially blooming. So until next time, I'm William Green. Thanks for stopping in to My Green Pets, and we'll see you next time.